Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are continuing our coverage of the ongoing civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia. And we're going to jump right into this and really focus today on both the conflict, obviously, that is happening inside of Ethiopia, but also what is happening inside of the despotic state of Eritrea, led by Isaias Afwerki. So we're starting to hear more and more information coming from Eritrea that indicates that they are slowly but steadily migrating more and more towards an alliance and or agreements with both Russia and China. And it would appear now that Eritrea is actively entertaining the possibility of deploying a Russian military base in its port of Assab. And again, we know that the United Arab Emirates operate out of Eritrea, but again, now we're learning more and more information that the regime in Eritrea is looking more and more towards Vladimir Putin and Russia for assistance in terms of both material support, economic support. That's going to be very, very difficult going forward, obviously. But really, what is the reason that right now Eritrea is looking for direct support, quite possibly from Russia? And that could take the form, obviously, of military equipment, military contractors. Obviously, Russia does have its hands full right now with what is happening in Ukraine. But nonetheless, it is looking for strategic partners as Russia is looking for anyone and anyone who will really kind of support it at this point, given what is happening in the world. And given Eritrea's position on the Red Sea, very close to the Gulf of Aden, and access to vital maritime routes of navigation around the world, that is where Eritrea sits. And that is one reason why Russia is quite possibly entertaining the idea of setting up a military base and or naval logistics point in Eritrea. And so what does Eritrea get for this in terms of allowing Russians to have a military base? Well, they're probably going to get weapons, and they're going to get support from Russian paramilitary actors as well. And then the question is why? Well, obviously there has been a great war that continues to this day. And Eritrea, and specifically Isaias Afwerki, involved himself in a very unsuccessful invasion into the Tigray region. And now there may be some within the Tigrayan Defense Forces, and many within the Tigray region, that would like to hold Isaias Afwerki, that despotic regime in Eritrea, accountable for the activity and the way its forces conducted itself inside of the Tigray region before the Tigray Defense Forces evicted those Eritrean forces from cities such as Adigrat, Adwa, Shire, and Shiaro to the northwest. So right now we're continuing to hear about that fairly significant Tigrayan Defense Force buildup that appears to be now more or less situating itself quite possibly towards Eritrea in western Tigray, as opposed to facing towards the Amhara region at this point. So I would say at this point there could be some worry inside of that despotic regime of Eritrea led by Isaias Afwerki that could believe that the Tigray Defense Forces could be knocking on his door looking to depose him from power. And as I talked about in other previous videos, I think Eritrea is a house of cards that really just needs to be kicked in at this point. Isaias Afwerki is not a young chicken. He is getting older and older. I believe he's over 70 years old now, and his reign to power, his reign on power, may not last much longer. So the question is who takes over the reins of power in Eritrea. And the question is also, is the Tigrayan Defense Forces going to hold that regime accountable? As I've talked about in other videos, it seems to make more sense that at a certain point we could see a confederation or some sort of merging for the benefit of both nations of Eritrea and the Tigray region. And under those circumstances, the Tigray region could basically leave of the former state of Ethiopia to itself and go on its own in conjunction with a possibly new Eritrea if and when Isaias Afwerki were to leave power. And quite possibly that could be something that Isaias Afwerki is concerned about, the growing power of the Tigrayan Defense Forces, and if and when it makes a move against his regime. And obviously that is something that could happen. And is it close to happening? Again, very difficult to say at this point. But I would imagine that is why we are seeing Isaias Afwerki and his regime starting to position itself closer to Russia, because in all probability the Russians would most likely give more assistance to that despotic regime as opposed to a Western nation. So it's really Eritrea's only shot at this point in terms of the continued flow of weapons and assistance, especially after the way that regime acted in its occupation of the northern Tigray region. In other news, we continue to hear about the Oromo Liberation Army continuing to pressure Addis Ababa, also known as Finfine. We continue to hear about the growth and expansion of the Oromo Liberation Army, and that is probably one reason right now why the Abiy loyalists have decided not to really look towards Tigray anymore in terms of possible offensive operations. They were beat in Tigray, they were beat in the Amhara region, and now they're just holding on to power and fighting off the Oromo Liberation Army, which is growing stronger and stronger day by day as the Abiy loyalist formations appear to be growing weaker and weaker day by day. So again, we will continue to watch what is happening on the ground and obviously report on what is happening. That is what we have for today. More to come in the very, very near future. Have a good day, everybody.